Down this weekend, we have UFC 314 Volkanovski versus Lopes, and in this video, I will be giving my full card breakdown along with a prediction for every single fight on the card. Cannot wait for this, man. This card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. We have some fun matchups, we have some very interesting style clashes, and we are in Miami, Florida for this event. So anytime the UFC goes to Florida, we usually get a very, very good card. And whenever they go to Miami, it just seems like everyone is pulling out all the stops, man. The stars are out. It's a big fight feel when the UFC goes to Miami. I think we are in for a banger night of fights. Let's hop into it, starting with the very first fight of the evening between Nora, the Great Cornholio, and Hailey Cowan. To me, this is a straightforward matchup. I think Hailey Cowan, from what we've seen from her recently, it's just, it doesn't look particularly good, right? She goes out there and loses, to Jamie Lynn Horth. That was almost 2 years ago, right? So she's been very, very inactive. And prior to that, on the Contender Series, she gets a split decision win over Claudia. And before that, getting to the UFC, it's like we've seen that she has decent grappling. She does have decent submission ability. But on the feet, I just think that she is really behind Nora in this fight. And I think that that's what this comes down to, because Nora's last time out, she fought Jacqueline Cavalcanti. And those of you that are watching the channel know that, look, when it comes to WMMA, like Cavalcanti, man, she is a solid striker. She's rangy, she's very technical on the feet, and she's a puzzle. And a lot of, fighters, they have issues with her, right? Closing the distance, getting inside that range and that long rangy style that she has. So really no harm, no foul. Cavalcanti has been on an absolute tear since he's been in the UFC. So I don't hold, too much against Nora for that. And then, she has the ability, like I said, she moves forward. She has legit power in her hands. And I think that's the difference in this fight. The way that she moves forward, the way that she is able to march people down, crush the space, let the combinations go. I just see it being too much for Hailey Cowan in this fight. I'm going to go second round finish for Nora, the Great Cornholio, in this fight. I just think that she's going to be a little bit too much too soon for Hailey Cowan. But if Hailey can mix in the grappling, she has a chance. I just don't think she's going to be able to take Nora down consistently enough to give herself a shot. Moving on, we have Gore versus Marco Tulio. This is an interesting matchup. This is an interesting matchup because I'm so quick and everyone's so quick to just be like, well, this is kind of a no-brainer. Marco Tulio, man, he's a savage. He's got crazy power in his hands. He's very athletic. He's very explosive. And he also has really good grappling, right? So when you look at that, you're like, how does Gore win this fight, right? When Gore was on The Ultimate Fighter, he had this kind of vibe to him, right? Where he had these really, really nasty leg kicks. He's got good power and is very explosive on the feet. And it just hasn't looked like that since he's got to the UFC. But what we have seen is a guy that has displayed a pretty good grappling game, right? He's got pretty solid wrestling, has good submissions. In his most recent outing, he goes out there and subs Antonio Tricoli. Who cares, right? Antonio Tricoli, he's not a particularly good fighter. I'm shocked that he's, I never really thought that he was someone that was particularly UFC caliber, right? I know he's a tall, rangy guy, and it's kind of hard to deal with. But once you get inside that range and find an answer, Tricoli is a very winnable matchup. So we good, solid win from Gore, but I don't, rate that too high. Then he goes out there against Josh Frem, finds a submission. That's not a bad win. But again, 2.5 years ago, getting the sub there. But if you look at the Cody Brundage fight, loss, Brundage is kind of, gets shit on a lot and this and that, but I don't know what to read it and what to think of that, because we just saw what Cody Brundage did to David Marquez. So I'm like, what do we think there? And, kind of the kryptonite, what I'm getting at with Gore. When he faces somebody that has something specific that they do that is X Factor-ish, as I like to call it, he runs into some issues. If a guy is strong, if a guy has power, we see some issues on the side of Gore. I think that's what he's up against in this fight against Marco Tulio. Marco Tulio is a savage, man. He is a serious problem. You saw what he did to Ior Potieria. That was a nasty finish. And then on the Contender Series, when you go out there and you start somebody to work your way into the UFC, you are going to turn some heads. This dude is dangerous. He's fast. He's nimble. And when it comes to that pull counter where he slides right out of the way, baits you into overextending on a shot and lets that right hand fly, he can put out just about anybody in this division. I think Marco Tulio finds a KO shot against Gore. I'm going to say in the first round. Maybe if Tresean mixes in some wrestling and tries to get to the fight to the floor, he could potentially find a victory for himself there, but I just think he's going to struggle because Marco's not a scrub with the grappling. I do think Gore is probably a better wrestler. When it comes to the submission game, like, I know Gore's got a nasty guillotine, and I know he's a physically strong guy. Just don't think it's enough to beat Marco Tulio. I think Tulio, I think he's for real, man. But again, we see when these guys come in, they're new, they get a nice, solid test in front of them, and it doesn't seem to go their way. I just don't think Tresean Gore has kind of been the guy that we were kind of expecting coming off a tough. I think Marco Tulio starches them early in the fight. Moving on, we have Sumudaerji versus Mitch Raposo. Now, I've been kind of back and forth on this one because I think Sumudaerji, he is a really, really talented fighter. In particular, when it comes to the striking on the feet. I think he's very dynamic out in space. He's fast, he's quick, and he knows how to maintain his range from the outside. And he's got a laser beam left hand. He's very good at moving in and out of range. He's fast, he's quick. And I see a scenario where he could go out there and absolutely beat the brakes off of Mitch, right? Because while, Sumudaerji is coming off of a 3-fight losing streak, he's only 29 years of age, right? He's got a lot of experience. And before those 3 losses, he went out there and finished Malcolm Gordon, which I know was 4.5 years ago. Then he goes out there and gets a decision. And his past 3 fights, he's kind of been inactive, right? Which is a little bit of a concern for me. But he goes out there, was beaten up on Matt Schnell before, giving it up and getting submitted. Then he goes out there and gets submitted by Tim Elliott. So again, 2 decent opponents there. And then coming off of his most recent fight, he loses to Charles Johnson, who I've been saying is one of the most underrated flyweights in the world. So not a bad loss there, right? And he's kind of going back and forth on the feet with Charles Johnson. So when I look at this fight, the question is, will Mitch Raposo finally cash in on a UFC opportunity? Because it seems like he has just been right on the cusp of being UFC caliber. And I don't know where Mitch lies at this point because from what we've seen, he doesn't seem like he's UFC caliber. He's like better than the local pro scene, but somewhere right in between the local pro scene and the UFC. And from what we've seen from Mitch, every time he gets an opportunity, whether it's the Ultimate Fighter, whether it's the Contender Series and that loss against Jake Hadley, he is not able to cash in on those UFC opportunities. And I know there's people out there that are going to say, but Jake, look what Reese McKee just did last weekend in Frunza, how he was able to pull off the upset and go out there and get his first win in the UFC. It's a little bit different. And the reason it's a little bit different is because Mitch Raposo is not fighting some newcomer who's looking to make his name in the UFC. This is an established guy who's been around in Sumudaerji, who, by the way, is not a complete scrub when it comes to the grappling, right? Because in my opinion, Mitch's route to win this fight is to mix everything together. Mitch has decent hands. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he's got some decent boxing, has decent wrestling, has a decent submission game. But I'm saying decent because we haven't seen it very much yet inside the UFC to be effective, and I think this is a hard fight for him. He's got an experienced UFC guy in front of him. This isn't some other fighter who's coming off the Contender Series or something like that and is going to be having jitters and all that kind of stuff. Sumudaerji is dangerous on the feet. He's fast. He maintains range well. And I know that he's been submitted in 2 out of these last 3 here. Against Tim Elliott, that's a solid grappler. Gets subbed by Matt Schnell, who does have a solid submission game. So I don't think that Raposo has a ground game as good as those guys. So for those reasons, I'm going to lean towards Sumudaerji to get this one done. I'm going to say by decision. I could see maybe he's able to finish Raposo. Maybe Mitch mixes things together, makes it a gritty, grimy type of fight to where he pushes him up against the fence, utilizes the grappling and finds a way there. But I think Sumudaerji maintains his range, floats and stings around on the outside, and wins a decision here. I think, again, Raposo's coming off the loss to Andre Lima. I didn't think this was really a split decision. I thought Lima convincingly, in my opinion, won that fight. So, take that one with a grain of salt. Raposo's good. I don't know that he's UFC caliber. And while Sumudaerji's coming off a 3-fight losing streak, I think he's fast. I think he's dynamic on the feet. I think he gets this one done. Moving on, we have Cedricus Dumas versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. To me, I actually don't think that this fight is relatively close. And that may shock you. You may think I'm crazy to say that, but I don't think this is a close fight, man. I don't think this is a close fight. And I know Cedric Dumas is, from Pensacola, Florida. He's going to be fighting in his hometown state, and he's going to probably have a little bit of a different energy to him. He's going to be excited. He's going to probably have, family and friends. He's going to have the boys coming out to watch, and sometimes that can be good, right? You start fast, you get the adrenaline pumping, and you're feeling real good. But sometimes that can backfire on you. And I'm not saying that that is exactly what's going to happen in this fight. I'm not saying that that's a reason that I don't think Dumas wins. But from what we've seen from Dumas, I just don't really know what to think. I really don't know what to think. He's had some fights that have fallen apart, and that's kind of why there's been this little bit of a gap here. But the last time out, we saw him against Denis Tululin. Wins by decision, right? And what we've seen from Dumas is he's a long-rangey guy, 6'2", 79-inch reach. He's nimble on the outside, and he does have some pinpoint accuracy, right, at times. But to me, that's kind of the key word there, or the key term there, at times. Cedric Dumas just seems very inconsistent to me when it comes to the fighting style. It's like sometimes we see this guy on the feet that could be an issue for guys. Then we see him go out there against Nursultan Ruziboev, who is an absolute problem if he stays at middleweight. I think he's very good at welterweight, but at middleweight, Ruziboev is a serious issue. So to get finished by him, I don't, think that that's a bad loss there. Goes out there, beats a Zaitar by decision, beats Cody Brundage by decision, and then gets subbed by Josh Fremd. So really the issues for Dumas are, do you have power? Can you close him down, eliminate the range, make him fight in a phone booth? If you could do that and you can mix in the grappling, you could definitely beat Cedric Dumas. I look at Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, who's a guy that, he lost to Caio Borralho by submission. That hasn't aged as a bad loss, right? Goes out there and KOs Chidi Njokuani. Look how well that's aged, because we've seen Chidi has been on an absolute tear right now, and then loses by sub to Michel Pereira. Okay, that's a very explosive, dynamic guy. Then he goes out there, gets subbed by Kevin Holland after dropping him. Kevin Holland, say what you want about the guy, he's got a chin, man. He's not an easy guy to drop, right? So we saw that, and he got caught in a submission and, this and that. Then he goes out there against Shara Bullet, and he was doing okay, right? I know Shara Bullet was kind of picking and poking at him with the kicks, but I really believe that Mikhail Oleksiejczuk wins this fight. I actually think that he gets a KO. I think he gets a finish. I'm going to say, I would say in the second round, maybe he just wins this one by decision, but I just don't trust Cedric Dumas. And yes, it's very possible that, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk just comes marching into range with that high guard. He likes to box. He's got solid head movement. And maybe Dumas times his rhythm and lands a good right hand or something, or some sort of dynamic shot. But I think that's kind of what you're banking on, man. Can Dumas just outpoint Mikhail for 15 minutes? I just don't know. I know Mikhail's coming off of a 3-fight losing streak here, but I think that the competition has been pretty good. Again, Dumas, a similar kind of frame to a Kevin Holland, to a Shara Bullet, to where Mikhail is used to fighting these guys that kind of move like that. I think that Dumas is not as good as those guys. I think he's talented, but I think that Mikhail's boxing, his head movement, the way he gets to the inside, and if he decides to mix into some of the wrestling, I think it's going to be a problem. I got Mikhail by finish. I think he's able to get it done. Moving on, we have Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. Juicy J, baby. It's weird to me, because if you look at this and you don't go into their history, you don't look at, just watch the tape. You don't look at the opponents, you don't look at the strength of schedule, you don't look at any of those things. You go Julian Erosa all day long, man. Julian Erosa, I could go to sleep tonight. I don't have to worry about it. Julian Erosa is going to win the fight. Then you see just what happens with Julian Erosa. I mean, he goes out there, he beats Hakeem Dawodu. That was a solid win back at the time, right? Then he loses and gets KO'd by Alex Caceres. Then he gets KO'd by Fernando Padilla. Then he subs Ricardo Ramos. Like, how do you go from that to subbing Ricardo Ramos? And then you sub C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez, who has been the prospect killer. So it's like C-Rod's been the prospect killer, of his own. And then we have Julian Erosa, who he has been the prospect killer of his own. Where Julian Erosa struggles is when he faces these like seasoned vets, these old heads, and these guys that it feels like Erosa should just run over. He doesn't do it. But in this fight, he has to do it. Because if you lose to Darren Elkins, if you're Juicy J, I mean, I think that is an atrocious loss. It might be the most atrocious loss of his career if he loses to Darren Elkins, because I know Elkins is coming off of a 2-fight win streak. I get it. But he's 40 years of age. He's almost 41. He's literally called the damage. He takes a shitload of damage, doesn't move his head. He's awful on the feet. He is a stationary target who is basically a moving heavy bag that is there to be hit all day long. And, yeah, he beat Daniel Pineda, but really what it is if you get into a grit, dirty, grimy type of style fight with Darren Elkins, he can beat you. But if you avoid that and you make it a more technical type of matchup from the outside and you don't let Elkins just zombie forward, he is relatively an easy win. If you can stop the pace of the grappling. Yeah, he submitted TJ Brown, but what we've seen, he lost to JSP, he lost to Cub Swanson by KO, was able to beat Tristan Connolly. This competition that Elkins is beating, I just don't think that Juicy J is any of those guys. I think he's quite a bit better. I'm going to go Julian Erosa here, right? Because we've seen recently the submission game of Julian Erosa has been really solid. I'm going to say he finds a submission here. I'm going to say in the first round, maybe it looks kind of close, right? Juicy J is moving around, moving and grooving, right? He's fun to watch. He's really kind of reinvented himself, right? I like a lot of things about Julian. And I think that inside of a grappling exchange, he is able to snatch something and sub Darren Elkins. I'm going to go Julian Erosa by second round submission. He needs to win this fight. Do not lose to a almost 41-year-old Darren Elkins, who is known for taking damage, known for zombieing forward, which is basically his best attribute. I got Julian Erosa by sub in this one. Moving on, we have Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. Now, I got to start the breakdown like this. I was really, really pissed off when the UFC booked this fight. I hate when we get someone like Jim Miller who is just an absolute legend of the sport. Like, I feel like if you're a fight fan and you've been around, like, you like Jim Miller, right? We all like Jim Miller, and he's got really good submissions. He's got a great calf kick, and he's one of those guys that really hopped on the calf kick trend back when it started to kind of, take over the game. And Jim Miller, he's a very, very solid opponent. He's been around for a while. He has a wealth of experience. You're not going to find many guys that have the type of experience that Jim Miller has. He's almost 42 years of age, but it's not like he's 42 years of age and has just fell off a cliff or anything. Like, Jim Miller is coming off of a win. He subbed Damon Jackson 4 months ago, right? And then before that, he got absolutely sliced and diced by Bobby Green at UFC 300, which I saw that coming a mile away because, look, Bobby's quick, he's fast, and the speed's going to be an issue. But before that, he went on a 2-fight win streak, right? When everyone's like, I feel like Jim Miller's done. No, he was going out there finishing dudes, right? So Jim Miller still has the ability, and then he lost to Alexander Hernandez by decision. But he finds himself in a position to where it just feels like this is where we see the changing of the guard. This is where we see the UFC strategically matchmake an old head for the young up-and-coming guy that they are looking to build. And that, in this position, is Chase Hooper, who they're not just trying to, give Chase Hooper a matchup that obviously he could build, himself moving forward off the name of Jim Miller here. Chase Hooper is a serious issue inside the lightweight division. First of all, he's 6'1". He's got a 74-inch reach, but the dangerous thing about Chase Hooper, we all know that he has outstanding submission ability. I would say he's an elite grappler in this weight class. He's got outstanding submissions. He has pretty good takedown entries of his own. And the biggest thing that I think is scary for the division, Chase Hooper is starting to understand how to be a solid striker now, right? Where he goes out there and he lost to Steve Garcia, but since goes out there, beats Nick Fiore by decision, is able to sub Jordan Levitt, goes out there and subs Vyacheslav Borshov, which this was maybe the most impressive performance to me of Chase Hooper's career because he hurt Slava on the feet, and we know how good Borshov is on the feet. So I thought that Chase Hooper, the submission game, was going to be an issue, but I didn't expect him to hurt him on the feet, right? So clearly we're seeing an evolution in the game of Chase Hooper. Then he goes out there and subs another OG in Clay Guida, and it just feels like Chase Hooper is coming for all of the legends that the UFC can give him, and that is why I think Chase Hooper finds a submission in this fight. I'm going to say in the second round, I think maybe there's a very competitive first round early on because Jim Miller's no scrub, man. He might be almost 42. He might have, lost a little bit of a step, but I still think he's got it. And his fighting style, he could fight till he's 50, right? I don't think he would, win all the fights, right? But he has that style to where he doesn't require a ton of movement, throws a nice calf kick out there. He's got decent hands. But I think the speed of Chase Hooper, a guy that's 25 years old, starting to really hit his stride. The striking is improving. And now that he can strike and hide the grappling behind it, I think a lot of guys are fucked in this division when it comes to a matchup with Chase Hooper. I think Chase gets it done by submission. Moving on, we have Xiaonan versus Virnad Jandiroba. I got to be honest. I know when it comes to WMMA, we do a lot of joking around. We have our fun, but I'm going to be honest. This is one of the most intriguing women's fights of the year by far so far, at least. This is a very, very, very good matchup right here. And I think that this here is a massive fight for both women here, because with Virna Jandiroba, we all know what we're getting. We're getting a savage when it comes to the grappling. What we've seen from her outside of the loss to Amanda Ribas, but keep in mind, Ribas has pretty good grappling of her own. She's been a savage, man. Goes out there and beats Angela Hill, who nobody really runs through Angela Hill, right? So to go out there and win a decision over the veteran in Angela Hill, I know that this was almost 3 years ago, but Hill's a tough fight, man. She doesn't have a ton of power, doesn't have much of a threat when it comes to finishing ability, but she's well-rounded, hard to deal with, and never stops with her relentless pace. So that was a solid win there. Goes out there, beats Marina Rodriguez, who's a very rangy, athletic striker on the outside. Goes out there and beats Lupi Godinez by decision, who has solid grappling, very good boxing of her own. And then she goes out there and subs Amanda Lemos, who just came off of a very, very good performance of her own. Even though it was boring, it was flat out boring. I'm not saying it was an exciting fight, but she took out an up-and-coming fighter. And I picked Amanda Lemos to get that one done. I felt like she was being overlooked. But Amanda Lemos is dangerous. Whether, her last fight was very, very boring, but she's got power. She has a solid ground game of her own. So if you're going out there and you're subbing Amanda Lemos, who's top of the heap in the weight class, it clearly shows that you're a problem in the division. And when you look around in women's MMA, Virna is one of the best grapplers in women's MMA. Her submission ability is outstanding. Her striking is mad, right? I don't think it's anything spectacular. And I think that that's where things could get a little bit dicey. If she cannot get the fight to the floor, I think that she is going to get sliced and diced and tuned up like a new guitar on the feet by Xiaonan, because what we've seen from Yan, yes, she lost to Marina Rodriguez by split, but she goes out there, beats Mackenzie Dern, finishes Jessica Andrade, loses in the title fight at UFC 300 to Zhang Wei Li, and then is coming off of a victory over Tabitha Ricci, to where I was shocked the UFC booked that. I'm like, Yan's going to beat the shit out of Tabitha Ricci and absolutely pick her apart. So to me, this is straightforward. And Jandiroba gets the fight to the floor, she wins this fight. I think she controls, she wins the minutes, and she wins by decision. Or maybe there's that possibility that she finds some sort of submission. Maybe, Yan gets a little desperate to try to get back to the feet because she's losing. She knows it. She has to try to get to space, look to land something, and that's where she gets caught in a sub. But then again, like Yan Xiaonan, I know one of the holes in the game people seem to think is the grappling. And I kind of agree, right? I do think that she does have some weaknesses there. But I don't know that, is she that bad with the grappling that if she can't somewhat keep this fight on the feet, that she couldn't just pick apart Yan Xiaonan, man, or pick apart Virna Jandiroba? Like, I absolutely think she could do it. But from what we've seen so far, I'm going to go with the hot hand. I think now is her time. I'm going to go Virna Jandiroba by decision. Of course, if Yan gets desperate and has to try to work back to her feet and she gets a little bit, frustrated, impatient, I could see Virna finding some sort of submission. But I do think if Yan can keep the fight on the feet, she has a nice advantage there. I think she's faster. I think she's slicker. And I think that she would be a step ahead when it comes to the striking. But I think it's just Jandiroba's time. I think that she is an elite grappler in women's MMA. The way she mixes things together, the way that she is able to chain the submissions on top of the wrestling, I just think it's going to be a problem for Yan Xiaonan over the course of 15 minutes. I'm going Virna by decision. Moving on, we have I can't wait for this fight. Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I've been really high on Sean Woodson for a long time. I know that, he's kind of funky to look at, man. Like, when you look at Sean Woodson, it's like, how the hell are you built like that at featherweight, man? How are you 6'2" with a 78-inch reach that looks like a praying mantis or something? This dude's built like he's built like a grasshopper. Like, I really don't. It's impressive to be built the way Sean Woodson is, man. It takes skill to be built like that. But listen, Sean Woodson is a very talented fighter. I've been saying for the longest time that I've just been waiting for the opportunity for Sean Woodson to get that big step up in competition and get that solid opponent that a lot of people know. He finally has that opportunity here against Dan 50K Ige, who, look, you could say what you want about Dan Ige, right? He wins some, he loses some. He is going to show up and scrap no matter who the opposition is. I mean, this dude took a fight on 2-hour notice to fight Diego Lopes at International Fight Week. Anytime, any place, that is the name of the game for Dan Ige. And he's coming off of a loss to the up-and-coming guy in Lerone Murphy, who just picked up a nice victory over Josh Emmett. But what we've seen from Ige, if you stand in the phone booth and you are there to be hit inside the pocket, this guy can put anybody at featherweight out. He has dangerous power. Coach Eric Nixick and him, they click, man. They mesh. I watch them drill, the way they hit the pads, the shifting combinations, the inside boxing. I like everything about Dan Ige. I like his mentality. I like his ferociousness, and he has an edge to him, right? He lost to Bryce Mitchell by decision, but we have seen if you stand in the pocket with Dan Ige, he will bang your ass up and he can finish people. And we saw against, Diego Lopes to where, Lopes didn't think he had a fight, thought he had a fight, all these different things to where I don't think we saw the best version of Diego in that fight for a number of reasons. But Ige also took the fight on short notice. I know he was preparing for a fight that was supposed to happen, I think, a few weeks down the line. So he was still somewhat in camp, right? So we saw a pretty solid version of Ige, and he put it on Lopes later in the fight. So I think that over the course of 15 minutes, I think Dan Ige has a significant power advantage. I think he's the more powerful fighter, and I actually think he's the more well-rounded fighter. He has good submission skills. He actually has really good grappling that we don't always get to see a ton of. But I just think Sean Woodson's that good, man. I really do, and I know he's got a funky style. He looks like he's playing basketball. Looks up, jump fake, throwing his hands this way. Like, oh, boom, and here comes an uppercut. Oh, boom, here comes a straight hand down the middle. He's got a funky style. He switches stances well, moves around on the outside. He's got good front kicks up the middle. He's got excellent boxing. He's got that boxing background, and I just think Sean Woodson's going to pick him apart, man. And we've seen that throughout his career. We saw against Alex Caceres, tricky matchup, that karate style of fighter, solved him, right? Then goes out there and finishes Fernando Padilla in the last fight. And I'm like, okay, now Sean Woodson's going to get himself a big opportunity next. I think the elusiveness and the tricky style on the feet, the way that he manages the range, the way that he mixes things together, is going to be a problem for Dan Ige in this fight. Dan's 5'7", 71-inch reach. Sean Woodson has a significant height and reach advantage over basically everybody in the division. It just seems unfair. I think he's tricky. I like his style. It's different. It's dynamic. And I love watching a good boxer, man. He's got a good high guard, mixes it up, baits you. His hands are up. You think that he's just playing defense, and then bang, a hook comes out of nowhere. Front kick up the middle. I think he keeps Dan Ige at the end of his shots and outpoints him to a decision. But if Dan Ige can get in the pocket, not allow Sean Woodson to dance around on the outside and don't fall for all the different feints and those types of things, I could absolutely see Dan Ige landing a nasty shot and getting Sean Woodson out of there. I just think the volume is on the side of Woodson. The range and the dynamic striking style is on the side of Woodson. I think he's able to outpoint him and get it done. I got Sean Woodson. Moving on to the main card, we have Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. I've been back and forth on this fight. Because if there wasn't this long layoff from Nikita Krylov, I feel like we would all kind of be on the same page. Like, Krylov's winning this fight, dog. Like, this is a dude that his 2 losses out of his last 5, one was 4 years ago to the now champion Magomed Ankalaev, who I'd been saying for the longest time is the most elite guy in the weight class. So you lost by decision to him, and there were competitive moments throughout that fight, right? So I think that hasn't aged bad at all. Then he goes out there and gets subbed by Paul Craig, and everyone's going to be, I got subbed by Paul Craig. Paul Craig has the weirdest resume in UFC history. He subbed Ankalaev, subbed Jamal Hill. He has the ability to get the shit beat out of him for 14 minutes, and in the final minute, find a submission. It's almost like Gerald Mearshart type of thing, right? Where he gets beat up and finds a sub. So with the Paul Craig victories and, the loss to Paul Craig, I don't read too much into it. But he beats Alexander Gustafsson. That was really sad to see. I'm a huge fan of Gustafsson. That was hard to see. He was able to get a finish. Goes out there, beats Volkanovski by decision. His last time out was over 2 years ago against Ryan Spann, where he was able to sub him. And it's weird because Ryan Spann, it's like you just never know what Ryan Spann's going to show up. Is he taking it serious? Is he focused? Is he going to be lazy in there? Like, what Ryan Spann are we getting? So I don't really know what to think of that, right? But to sub Ryan Spann, I think, is very impressive. But he's been away for a really long time. Obviously, there's been a lot of things going on where he's from. So, it's just been a very tricky situation for Krylov. He's been inactive, right? And if you are one of those guys that you believe in the Dominic Reyes theory of ring rust ain't real, then Nikita Krylov should come in here, in my opinion, and absolutely destroy Dominic Reyes because he's dangerous on the feet. He's got a sneaky high kick. He's aggressive, blitzes in and out of range well. He's got dynamite in his hands, and he does have a solid ground game in his back pocket to where I don't think Reyes has a solid ground game of his own, right? But I do think Reyes has good takedown defense. So I don't know that Krylov is just able to take Dominic Reyes down. John Jones really couldn't take Reyes down, right? We haven't seen Dominic ever taken down and particularly controlled. So I don't know that Krylov is going to be able to do that in this fight. I think it's a kickboxing fight. And given where Krylov was at the last time he fought, I mean, think about where Dominic Reyes was. He was a guy that we weren't sure if we were ever going to see him back in the UFC. We didn't even know what we were going to see from Reyes. He got KO'd by Jan Blachowicz. Can't believe that was 5 years ago almost. Gets KO'd by Yuri Prochazka. Got KO'd by Ryan Spann, the guy that Nikita subbed. And now, if you ask me at this time, it's like, well, Krylov clearly wins. But we've seen the resurgence of Dominic Reyes, KO's former Glory kickboxer, and Dustin Jacoby, and now is coming off of a finish over Anthony Smith. But Anthony Smith is way over the hill. He shouldn't have even been fighting against Dominic Reyes at that time. So again, I take everything with a grain of salt. I think the better fighter, one of the more underrated guys on the roster, is actually Nikita Krylov. And I don't think it's going to take much time in this fight. I think Dominic Reyes has a piston left hand. He's just became very predictable when it comes to the striking. I know that he's slick. It's been a fun, feel-good story watching Reyes rack up 2 wins in a row. I love Dominic Reyes, man. I would love to see him get it done. But that's my heart. My brain is telling me Nikita Krylov is the better overall fighter. If we're talking about who could contend for a title at this point in their career, I think that's Nikita Krylov. If he looks anything like he did before the long layoff here, I think Nikita Krylov destroys Dominic Reyes in the first round. I think they get right to it. I think it's a kickboxing fight back and forth. Maybe we see Krylov look to mix in the grappling just to push him up the fence to where he can let some shots go in close. If he avoids the left hand of Dominic Reyes, that's basically all you got to watch with Reyes. I think he's fun. He's a former football player. He's a very athletic guy. But I just think that the power, the dynamic ability of Krylov, the sneaky high kicks that he throws, he does go a little ooga booga, gets a little reckless, and forgets the technique. I think he's able to clip Dominic Reyes and get him out of there. So I'm going Nikita Krylov by finish. But I think someone gets finished in this fight. It'd be crazy to see Reyes get it done, but I just think Krylov is he's an underrated fighter, man. Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. This is the long-awaited UFC debut, at least one of them, that I've been really, really waiting for, man. And that is because Patricio Pitbull is a world-class elite featherweight. I said elite because he is. A lot of folks out there, they don't watch enough PFL, they don't watch enough Bellator when Patricio was basically one of the faces of the organization at that time. And he's someone that I was getting worried. I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to see him in the UFC because of all the shenanigans going on with the PFL and just the way things were unfolding. I didn't know if this day would come. It's finally here. And Patricio Pitbull, there's a couple things to note about this guy. At featherweight, he is virtually unstoppable. He's moved up to lightweight where he was able to KO Michael Chandler, which was a perfect counter right hand right on the back of the ear of Michael Chandler. So he didn't flush starch him or anything like that, but he was able to sit him down. It was a good stoppage. I know back at the time, everyone's like, bad stoppage, bad stoppage. Michael Chandler was out of it. It was a perfect shot by Patricio Pitbull. He's got that Henry Cejudo, Davison Figueiredo, karate-esque style. He's not a high output guy, but he will pick his shots. And when he decides to go, there is a lot of tenacity behind what Patricio does. And I think that is going to be a serious issue for Yair Rodriguez in this fight because Patricio Pitbull over his last 5 fights, I mean, because this is what's recent, right? He goes out there, he beats Adam Borics. That's a very game opponent. Goes out there and wins this one as well over Clever. Then he drops 2 in a row. But keep in mind, the loss here to Sergio Pettis, this was when Patricio Pitbull, he's dropping down to bantam. He had no business dropping down to bantamweight, man. None at all. I guess he was just bored and looking for challenges, I guess. I don't know why they did it. I didn't think that was a good move at all. So he's completely compromised from draining himself, right? Because again, he's went up to 55. He's, beaten AJ McKee where he had to hiccup there the first time with McKee, was able to get that one back, KOs Michael Chandler to become double champ. Then here, this was a horrible decision to do that. that. And then I feel like he was feeling maybe the effects of that when he came back in the next one at Ryzen against Suzuki, to where he got starched. But then he got back on track with a big victory over Jeremy Kennedy, where he was able to finish him. And that's the type of performance I want to see when you're coming over to the UFC. So the bottom line is this. You may not know who Patricio is. You might not know a ton. The guy is incredibly dangerous, and he's not just some guy coming over to the UFC. He is an elite featherweight that I wish was in the UFC a long, long time ago. And yes, he's almost 38 years of age, so he's getting up there on the older side. But the way that Patricio fights, I don't know that age is going to be a huge deal in this, because on the other side, we have Yair Rodriguez. And whenever we watch Yair fight, a couple things stand out. One, he's tall and lean for the weight class. He's 5'11", he's got a 71-inch reach, and he is one of the most dynamic kickers in UFC history. He's flashy, he's dynamic, and he can be losing a fight up until the final seconds and land a nasty spinning elbow on the Korean Zombie and basically steal away a victory after he was losing that fight. Yair is dangerous. He's game no matter where the fight goes. I know that he's had some issues with the wrestling and getting dominated when it comes to the grappling, but he does have a slick submission game. He's got some nasty up kicks from the bottom, and when it just comes to the back and forth striking, not many guys can do that with Yair. I think one of the holes with Yair is a little bit with the boxing, right? I think he's got decent hands, not the best, but it's the kicks. It's that Taekwondo style, and if you sit at range, Yair will destroy you. He will attack your legs. He will beat up your body with those. He's got a rifle in his kicks, man. The way he throws those kicks, it's like a rifle. He will punish the midsection, bring those upstairs. He will throw dynamic, spinny, flashing attacks. He is so dangerous on the feet, without question. But when's the last time Yair's KO'd somebody? Right? Let's look at the resume here. He lost by decision to Max Holloway, goes out there, beats Brian Ortega, and he was beating up on Brian, but there was the shoulder injury. Goes out there, he subs Josh Emmett, which this was a really good performance by Yair because Emmett's dangerous. He's got good grappling in his back pocket, but he has tremendous power, and we've seen Josh Emmett he's a top guy in the featherweight division, not really top 5, somewhere between 5 and 10, like I've been saying, but he's dangerous. He's got crazy power. We saw Yair was just way too fast on the feet, beating the brakes off of him. Then he's dropped 2 in a row, got beaten up by Alexander Volkanovski, and then got taken down and subbed by Brian Ortega. Yair had moments, right? To drop Brian Ortega is impressive. I just think that's a really bad loss against Ortega. I know Brian's got good submissions, and he does have underrated wrestling, actually. But I look at Patricio Pitbull, a guy that has outstanding power in his hands. He's got a nasty right hand. He's patient. He finds his shots. He doesn't rush anything. And he has grappling in his back pocket. A lot of his wins come by submission. He's able to knock guys out. He can do it all. That's why I'm saying Patricio Pitbull is not just some guy coming over into the organization that's fun. He is a high-level world champion. He is an elite fighter, a guy with a full skill set. And I think that's troubling for Yair Rodriguez. Patricio Pitbull is not an idiotic fighter. He has high fight IQ. I think he comes into this with a very intelligent game plan and is able to outscore Yair Rodriguez. Maybe he finds a finish, right? I could definitely see that in this fight, someone getting a finish, because if Patricio can't close down Yair Rodriguez and crush the space, he's going to get tuned up on the feet because Yair is way faster, at least when it comes to the kicks in that range. But I think Patricio has better hands. He has more power in his hands. And while Yair was able to sub Josh Emmett, this notion that Yair is some sort of knockout artist, he has knocked people out. But it's been a while since we've seen that. We saw back in the day with Frankie Edgar how he was able to wrestle Yair Rodriguez and take it down. I know Patricio's not, a world-class wrestler or anything like that. He's got a very solid ground game. Very, very good ground game. Outstanding power in his hands. He's patient. He's dynamic in terms of he has the full package when it comes to the skill set. I think that's troubling for Yair. And if it gets into a dogfight, if you're asking me who's going to come out on top, that is Patricio Pitbull, a guy that has been in multiple 5-rounders. He's fought some of the who's who outside of the UFC. And as good as Yair is, I think that he's a dynamic, flashy fighter. I don't think that he is an elite featherweight. Like I said, very skilled, and I'm a massive fan of Yair Rodriguez, love watching him fight, but I believe that Patricio Pitbull is elite. That is the difference here for me. He's more well-rounded. I know Yair's been working on the wrestling with Bilal Muhammad, and I expect him to be improved there. I just don't know it's enough. And then if he's so worried about that, I can see the striking opening up for Patricio. I think Pitbull finds a shot that hurts him. Maybe he can get him out of there, but I'm going to say Pitbull wins by decision in a very impressive debut win over Yair Rodriguez. Either way, I'm expecting a banger between these two. Very, very good matchmaking by the UFC. Moving on, we have Bryce Mitchell versus Jean Silva. This is the people's main event here, man. This is the people's main event. Hoo, 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 hoo. You're barking up the wrong tree, motherfucker. We got a very, very fun back and forth here leading up to this fight between Bryce Mitchell and Jean Silva. Bryce Mitchell saying he can't sleep, the demons, the this and that. Jean Silva's this and that. And then we got Jean Silva who's like, I want to make Bryce Mitchell pay for all of the different things that he's been saying that have had his name in the headline recently. And all of that noise to the side. This is a very, very interesting matchup. This is a very interesting matchup because Bryce Mitchell, obviously, he's had his name in the headlines for the wrong reasons, right? He's been under fire. But people tend to kind of get so caught up in all of the things that Bryce is saying because Bryce says some wild shit, right? And he's kind of got everyone distracted to where people aren't remembering exactly who Bryce Mitchell is as a fighter. This guy has really good submissions, man. He's got very, very slick submissions, and he's got a good takedown game, right? And I think one of the things that's underrated about Bryce Mitchell is out in the open space, he does a good job of taking guys down. A lot of fighters, they need defense to be in order to take people down. He has no problem when you're in that open stance battle, slipping to the outside, grabbing the single, putting you on your butt, and looking to work and find those submissions. And I think that that's something impressive about Bryce Mitchell because we saw him do that to Edson Barboza. He loses to Ilia Topuria, but keep in mind, he took down Ilia. He had some good moments when it came to the grappling against Ilia, and Topuria is an outstanding fighter. I mean, we've gotten to see that, right? And he's very, very dangerous on the feet, so not a bad loss there. Then he is able to beat Dan Ige, who's a very, very solid fighter, and then he goes out there and gets starched by a nasty overhand by Josh Emmett, which was one of the most brutal one-shot KOs we've seen, and then he is coming off of a impressive performance over Kron Gracie. But again, Kron Gracie shouldn't be in the UFC. He should be doing flow grappling, jiu-jitsu competitions. He's not an MMA fighter, in my opinion. I like his, Kron Gracie and his jiu-jitsu and all that, but it's like a time capsule type of fighter. That's not a realistic opponent in the UFC. So Bryce Mitchell, getting a win there, I was, good that he got a win, but that's not a hard opposition. He is facing one of the hardest challenges of his career in Jean Silva, while Silva is also facing one of the hardest challenges of his career because Jean Silva has been an absolute menace since he's been in the UFC. The guy not only has a chaotic style to where he's super explosive, super powerful, he's got the most annoying and longest walkout, I think, in UFC history. But what we've seen is good matchmaking by the UFC. He hasn't really fought anyone that has tested his grappling. Right, and what concerns me for Jean coming into this fight is this fight right here against Charles Jourdain, man. I go back and I watch the tape, and Charles is down at bantamweight now, and we saw, him take down Silva and control him at moments, right? And if he's doing that, what's going to happen when you got a 5'10" featherweight and Bryce Mitchell, snatching a single, taking you down and putting you on your back and looking to advance positions and look for subs? Like, how's Silva going to deal with that, right? How is he going to deal with that? And that's what we're going to find out in this fight, and that's what's so intriguing to me. But if you stand on the feet in front of Jean Silva, it just seems like it's a matter of time. He's got dynamite in that right hand. His hands are low. He's got that wide base. He's very dug into the canvas, so that way when he counters and lets his hands fly, he will put you out. And we have seen that. We saw what he just recently did to Melsik Bogdasarian, which was incredibly impressive. He went up to 155 and was able to beat up Drew Dober, which was incredibly impressive. So it's very simple. If Bryce Mitchell can get the fight to the floor, I think he gives himself a very, very good chance to win this fight. Maybe he finds a sub, maybe he wins by decision on control time. But I think Jean Silva, the physicality, the confidence, this fighting nerds camp, man, there's something different about these guys. It's like they're grabbing potions and building these guys in labs, a little jiu-jitsu, a little flashiness, a little striking, a little this. And they're just world-class, man. They're super entertaining. They have this aura. They have this vibe about them. And I think it's going to be a problem for Bryce. I'm going Jean Silva by second round knockout. I think in the first round, maybe Bryce gets him down and controls him and has some moments here and there. But can he take down Silva and control him for 15 minutes? Because if Bryce is stuck on the feet with him, it's going to be a problem. I know Bryce has some decent kicks and he's not a complete scrub on the feet, but it's not pretty. It's not pretty. His boxing is not particularly good. He doesn't have the power and the sting to get a dangerous guy like Silva off of him. The only thing that will keep Silva back is the takedown threat. But in terms of the striking, I don't think Silva's going to respect anything coming back his way from Bryce Mitchell. And I think Jean Silva maybe gets taken down, works back to the feet, is able to create separation, put his foot on the gas. He's going to be taunting, moving around. And then when Mitchell times a poor entry, bang, Silva's going to land a big right hand and put him out. I think Jean Silva is able to finish Bryce Mitchell. Co-main event of the evening. We have Iron Michael Chandler versus Patricia Pimblett. Patty Pimblett. I still don't know who I'm picking right now, man. I don't know who I'm picking as we're doing this because I've went back and forth. I've been a fan of Michael Chandler for so long. He's someone that I've always been rooting for because, look, Michael Chandler over in Bellator, I've been watching most of his career, right? And when you watch Michael Chandler fight, you know you're getting fireworks. You know you're getting an entertaining scrap. But he's at the point now to where, look at the last 5 fights. Gets, finished by Charles Oliveira, loses a decision to Gaethje, although it was a great fight. Finishes Tony Ferguson, was getting busted up in the first round before he landed the front kick. Gets subbed by Dustin Poirier, landed some good shots, but got dropped by Poirier. Then goes out there and gets dominated by Charles Oliveira up until basically the last minute or 2 minutes of the fight. So what we've seen from Michael Chandler, he's obviously been in there with the top guys in the lightweight division. Without question, he's been in there against great competition, and he has the power to finish anybody in the weight class, right? But he's getting up there. He's almost 39 years of age, and he finds himself in a position to where he's taking on one of the bigger up-and-coming stars that the UFC is trying to push on to everybody in Patty Pimblett, who early on, I'm like, Patty Pimblett, his hype is not even close to matching his skill level, right? And we saw that against, Vargas. Yeah, he got a submission, still was kind of meh, right? Subs Jordan Levitt. It was kind of dicey in the beginning. Goes out there. He lost his fight to Jared Gordon, right? Got outpointed by Jared Gordon. They gave him the decision still. Goes out there. It was looking dicey against Ferguson. Is able to, beat him up, find a decision over him, which again, Tony Ferguson, we saw that win is just not the same for both of these guys that it would have meant back in the day. Then he goes out there 8 months ago and looks amazing against Bobby Green. But we've seen that Bobby Green has fallen off a little bit, right? And I did think that, yeah, there was that side of me that's like, look, Bobby Green could go out there and his speed and his precision, it might be too much where he just touches Patty Pimblett up on the feet. But I go back and I watch film, and Patty Pimblett sticks his chin in the air, and Michael Chandler has the power to KO anybody in the division. And this is important to note. Every fight that Michael Chandler has been in the UFC, he has basically hurt his opponent in every single fight. Every fight that he's been in, whether he's won or lost, he has hurt his opponents in some facet. The problem with Michael Chandler is I do think that he hurts Patty Pimblett. The question is, can he get him out of there when he does it? Because Michael Chandler goes in there, ooga booga, forgets the technique, drops his head, gets all wild and forgets the technique and finds himself in a position to where he'll get knocked out by somebody that shouldn't be knocking him out. Or getting subbed by someone that's not really known for subbing anybody. That is exactly kind of how Michael Chandler rolls. And I think that Chandler absolutely can win this fight. And I do think that there's a good shot he wins this. I think this is a 50-50 fight. And I think Michael Chandler, if he gets into the phone booth intelligently, drills a right hand to the body, leaps in with that left hook and throws those shifting combinations, given how Patty drops his hands and throws these winging shots, there's a very good shot that Michael Chandler is able to KO Patty Pimblett. But that's what you're banking on. This is a 25-minute fight. We haven't seen Patty Pimblett over the course of 25 minutes. We have seen him slow down in 15-minute fights. This is now 25 minutes. We've seen Chandler in 5-round fights. We've seen him go 25 minutes. And the experience is on the side of Michael Chandler. But can we pick Michael Chandler, who has shown us that he understands how to win, but he understands how to lose? Even when he's winning, he finds a way to lose. And I think that is kind of what we're looking at here. Is Patty Pimblett, I don't think that he is a world beater man. I think the hype is greater than his skill set. I think that on the feet, he is improving, right? I don't think he's particularly great on the feet, but he does have some decent power. Lazy when it comes to the boxing at times. Sticks his chin in the air, which is a disaster. But he's big for the weight class, man. He's big for the weight class. He has outstanding submissions. And just when you think, Chandler doesn't get subbed by Charles Oliveira, he gets subbed by Poirier. And I know Poirier has good submissions, but I think Patty Pimblett is a much better grappler than Dustin Poirier. I think Patty Pimblett doesn't always get the credit he deserves when it comes to the grappling. I think he has very high level submission ability. I think he has solid wrestling of his own. He's a big, strong guy. So if Paddy's going to win this fight, I think it has to be in the first couple rounds, because I think the longer this plays out, I think it favors Michael Chandler. And given that it's 5 rounds and we've seen Paddy slow down in these 15-minute fights, I just think it's a disaster. I think his chin's on a platter. I think Michael Chandler could absolutely KO him, but man, this is hard. I don't know who I'm picking, man. I don't know who I'm picking because I want Chandler to win. I'm a big Chandler fan, and every time I feel like I pick him, he lets me down. And it's like I feel like if I pick Pimblett, then this is, of course, when Chandler's going to win. But how can I pick Chandler, man? Because like if he doesn't KO him early, like I just think Pimblett finds a way. He finds a way. The UFC's hoping he wins, right? Because he's someone that they're trying to build. It doesn't mean he's going to win, right? The UFC put you in the position, but it's on you to get it done. Chandler's coming off of a bad loss to Oliveira, but that's Oliveira, right? He got outpointed for 25 minutes. He got picked apart, right? I'm going to go Paddy Pimblett. I'm going to go Paddy Pimblett by submission. I think that he's able to sub Michael Chandler. I'm going to say second round. But I can see Michael Chandler KOing him. So this to me is a toss-up. I really don't know. I've went back and forth multiple times with this. I think that Chandler can KO him given how bad defensively Paddy Pimblett is. Paddy Pimblett should absolutely win this fight. If he cannot beat Michael Chandler, he is not an elite guy in the division. It's almost like Paddy has to win this fight, and I think that he's a better overall fighter. I think that while he has some holes, he makes smarter in-fight decisions than Michael Chandler. And when Michael Chandler tries to be all technical and patient, it makes him worse. And I think that if he does that in this fight, he will get outpointed by Paddy Pimblett. He won't do very well. And if he gets too chaotic, sure, he could land a shot. I still know if he does on Paddy Pimblett. I just don't know if he does on Paddy Pimblett. I think Paddy Pimblett's submission game is going to come into play here. I got Paddy by sub. Moving on to the main event. We have Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. I've went back and forth on this one as well, because when this fight was announced, I was up here like, Volk's getting his belt back, man. He's getting his belt back. Look, Diego Lopes, we've seen him in his fights. We've seen against Sadiq Youssef, goes out there, absolutely steamrolls him at UFC 300, goes out there against Dan Ige, and he got tired late in the fight. And that's kind of been the story with Diego Lopes, is in these 15-minute fights, he's kind of like disappears in the third round. He just kind of skates by, and we see this big drop-off in energy when he's not able to get guys out of there. And that's concerning in this fight, because if this fight does get past the first couple rounds, I don't think Diego stands a chance against Volkanovski in the third, fourth, and fifth round, man. I think Volk will be so far ahead of him. He will be putting it on him, and I think that it will be a serious issue for Diego Lopes. So if Lopes is going to win, it's like we're asking ourselves, does he finish Volkanovski within the first couple of rounds? And I think there's a very good possibility that happens. Now, the interesting thing about the Ige fight, Diego thought that he didn't have a fight. Then he had a fight. Then he didn't have a fight. Then he had a fight. And mentally, that's going to throw you off. So I wasn't expecting a great Diego Lopes in that fight against Ige, and he still got through it, right? It was closer than I think what a lot of people thought. Then he goes out there and beats Brian Ortega to where he almost KO'd him in the first round, right? And if you're almost KOing Brian Ortega, we know that obviously that's very impressive, because Diego Lopes, he's dangerous. He's got that high guard, moves forward. He's got the, big power in his hands. He throws these big winging ooga booga shots. He forgets the technique, drops his hands, and gets really, really wild in the pocket. And he has the ability to KO anybody in the weight class. He's got a very, very good leg kick. He's devastating in the clinch. He's got nasty uppercuts, really, really good knees, to where if he could back Volkanovski up against the fence, get into the phone booth, let his hands fly, let the knees go, let that uppercut go, I could absolutely see him KOing Alexander Volkanovski early. I could even see him beating up the lead leg of Volkanovski early on to try to hinder his movement and make him a stationary target, like what we saw Ilia Topuria do. And I do believe that Diego Lopes is the more dangerous fighter. He has better submissions. He has more power on the feet. And I think that he is the more dangerous fighter. But I think Alexander Volkanovski is the better overall fighter. I think Alexander Volkanovski, we all basically know about that stat that in the lighter weight classes over the age of 35, what the likelihood is of someone winning a title, it's not existent. If anyone is going to do that and break that statistic there, I believe that it is Alexander Volkanovski. And I know everyone's saying that Volk's just going to come out and grapple and mix things up and this and that. That's easier said than done, because we've seen how good Pat Sabatini is. he had nothing for Diego Lopes, right? And in this stretch, I mean, he went out there and finished Gavin Tucker, but against Pat Sabatini, Pat Sabatini couldn't take him down. And Pat Sabatini has outstanding, he's really good wrestling, really good submissions, and he couldn't take Diego down, right? And Diego, to me, he has a lightweight frame. He is a guy that looks like a lightweight to me that fights down at featherweight. Hence, that might be one of the reasons that he has some issues with the gas tank. But I think in this fight, in the first 2 rounds, Volk is going to have to be super careful because at least the first round, right? I think the first round more so. To where if Diego backs Volk up, beats up the lead leg, marches him down into the phone booth, lets the boxing go, he's not super technical, right? I know people are throwing around the Topuria comparison. I get it because of the power. Topuria is a much better boxer than Diego Lopes. Diego has a lot of holes in the striking. He's aggressive, he's dangerous, and he has legit power to where he could absolutely KO Volkanovski because we've seen with Volk, got finished by Islam, got finished by Ilia Topuria, and he's taken this time off now to let himself recover. And I still don't know who I'm picking, man. I still don't know who I'm picking here. This is just like the co-main event, and this is what makes such a good card is when you don't know who you're going to pick. I think early on, Diego Lopes can absolutely finish Alexander Volkanovski. I think it's easier said than done to just grapple with Diego. I think as the fight plays out, if it gets that far, Volkanovski can take him down, look to utilize the ground and pound. He postures up, lets, the elbows go. He's very, very good when it comes to that, is Volkanovski. He's faster on the feet. He's more technical. He's got good leg kicks, good kicks to the body. He's got a piston of a jab. He's, he understands. He's got a super high fight IQ. He sticks and moves really well. And I think that Volkanovski's the better fighter. And I do think that he can outpoint Diego Lopes, maybe even get him out of there late in the fight. But can he make it there, man? Can he make it? Because Diego Lopes, to me, feels like the next big star in the UFC. He just does. He's got an exciting style. He's got the submissions. He's got the, the power in his hands. And just when you have to worry about the striking, you have to worry about the submissions in his back pocket. And coming off of 2 KO losses, are we going to see the same confidence in Volkanovski? I just don't know if we see it. I don't know if we see it. And so for those reasons, I am going to go with Diego Lopes. And I think that he is able to KO Volkanovski. Oh, this kills me, man. This absolutely kills me. And part of me kind of hopes that I'm wrong. And maybe before the fight, I swap my pick here. I don't know. I really don't know. I think that this is 50-50. I think Volkanovski's more technical. I think he's faster. I think that if he fights intelligent and makes it through the early rounds, that he absolutely can beat up on Diego Lopes. But getting there, I think is going to be a real struggle, man. I think it's going to be a real struggle. While Volk looks like he's in the best shape of his life, we've seen with a guy like Israel Adesanya, there's a lot of film on these guys out there now, like Volkanovski. And Volk can make all the improvements he wants. We know his game by now. And Diego Lopes and his team know Volk's game like the back of their hand by now. He backs away with his head up in the air, his hand by his chin, and the whole side of his head is exposed. I wouldn't be surprised if Diego comes out throwing head kicks, looks to get on the inside, extend the combinations, try to beat Volkanovski up in close. I think the power, the danger factor that Diego brings to the table, it just feels like it's his time, man, to where, like I said, I absolutely think Volkanovski is in this fight, and if he makes it through the first couple rounds, I think he definitely beats Diego Lopes and picks him apart and probably finds a finish in like the 4th round or something like that. But I think the danger that Lopes presents, the grappling, given how hard of a time Sabatini had with the grappling of Lopes, we saw back in the day Lopes had some issues with ground and pound. This is a new guy, man. This is a new guy. This is a guy that has made some really good improvements. Dream, believe, and make it happen. It's tatted on the chest of Lopes. I think it's his time, man. I think it's his time. Love Volkanovski, one of my all-time favorites. I feel like everyone's a fan of Volkanovski. It would be amazing to see him get it done. But I think Diego Lopes finds a finish at UFC 314. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Comment your thoughts down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.